This is one of my Walstad Method ecosystems, and this is another one of my Walstad Method ecosystems. Hi everyone, so I thought it was time I did a beginner series on setting up a Walstad Method ecosystem aquarium. I explain everything that's important to our ecosystem and how it works, how it functions in a simple way so people can get their head around it. And I was thinking of doing maybe quick Q&A live streams or something to explain things in a bit more detail if people are having problems. And I just thought to give everyone a basic understanding of what it actually entails, rather than all of the misinformation I'm seeing flying around the internet. As with every planted tank, whether it be high tech, meaning we're using highlight, we're injecting CO2, and we're using fertilizers, or a low tech tank, where we might or might not be using fert, we're using low light and we're not injecting CO2. Every planted tank needs a balance of those two things. We need CO2 to be in balance with the levels of our light. So the lower the CO2 levels in the aquarium, the lower the light we need to balance, and then we need nutrients to feed the plants. Now that's how we balance a planted aquarium. I'll go over how we balance light and CO2 and nutrients in a Walstad Method aquarium in a different video, but for the purpose of today's video I want to talk about nutrients in a Walstad Method aquarium. So this is a bottle of TNC Complete, which is, as you can see, it's a plant nutrient fertilizer for aquatic plants. And the reason why it's called Complete is if you look, it says it contains essential macronutrients and valuable trace elements. And these are important to every planted tank. But as you know, we don't use a fertilizer in the Walstad Method because the Walstad Method makes its own. Now we don't use liquid fertilizer or any fertilizer in a Walstad Method tank because we use something called nutrient cycling to create these macronutrients and what these are defining as valuable trace elements, which other people call micronutrients. Right then, so how do we create nutrient cycling within our Walstad Method aquarium? How do we run our ecosystem? So here I've got a normal test kit. Everyone's got a test kit, or most people have got test kits. Now, everyone should understand the nitrogen cycle. We set up an aquarium and everything breaks down and releases ammonia. Now, when that breaks down, bacteria break that down and they break it down into nitrite. And then another bacteria comes along a bit slower and breaks it down into nitrate. And you also notice that there's pH, GH and KH. Now, these are important. Remember the trace elements of the fertilizer mentioned? Well, this one's made up of magnesium and calcium. And this one is made up of carbonates and bicarbonates. So this is the magic of nutrient cycling in a Walstad Method aquarium. This is fish food, regular fancy goldfish fish food. So see all these here. We've got nitrogen, phosphate. So we've got nitrogen, which our crude protein is 16% nitrogen. We've got phosphorus, we've got 1.8% phosphorus in here. Our potassium is in the ash content, which gardeners will tell you about potash, which is a form of potassium. Magnesium is in here, magnesium. We've got iron, ferrous sulfate, Fe, and then we've got manganese, copper, and then we've got zinc is in here too. Basically, all the zinc, all our trace elements are in here, and our nitrogen, phosphorus, our macronutrients are here, here, and here. So every ingredient that we need from fertilization is in here. It's got Bacillus subtilis in it, which is a fermentation product, which when it's in the fish's gut, the bacteria will break it down into these trace elements and macronutrients. So what happens is, as we feed our fish food, the fish take it in, it's processed by the fish, and fish waste is released, and the fish waste drop down here, comes into contact with this, the beneficial bacteria break it down, and it turns it into our macronutrients and our trace elements. Now the soil is just a massive reservoir of our trace elements that our plant roots can get down into and get all the trace elements from, and the macronutrients go up into the water column. The plants absorb the nitrogen and the phosphates, and that is the key to nutrient cycle. We feed our fish, fish waste breaks down into our macronutrients and trace elements, and that is the ecosystem. It is the conversion of fish food and the soil being broken down by the bacteria from the fish eating, releasing the waste. It's broken down by the bacteria into macronutrients and trace elements that the plants will absorb, the plants will use as nutrients. So let's quickly touch on these again before we go. So we've got ammonia, NH3, nitrogen, hydrogen, we've got nitrite, nitrate, NO2, nitrogen and oxygen, the process of nitrogen cycling. But in an aquarium, plants prefer ammonium, which is NH4, which is what you'll find in most plant fertilizers. People say plants will use nitrate as a form of fertilizer. However, what a plant has to do is convert this back to this, back to this, and then they'll use that. Plants much prefer using ammonium over either of these. It'll use any of these, but it has to convert back to these. So it has a choice. It'll take that over any of these any time. So there we go. That's how a Walstad Method aquarium, via its nutrient cycle and ecosystem, will convert this into this via this.